Okay, so we hear a lot of creation stories. The most famous being in the beginning was darkness and then God created light. But there's a few all around the world. And there's a lot around Africa. But let me read one of my most favorite, uh, the Egyptian creation story, one of many. But this comes from an ancient book called Poimandres, the Vision of Hermes, or the Vision of Thoth. Thoth is the Egyptian god of knowledge, writing, wisdom. The translation of his name is Hermes to Greek. Um, and before we actually read that, let's read an introduction from the great Wayne B. Chandler. And this comes from the book Egypt, Child of Africa by Ivan Vencer. In the year 389 AD, the Christian emperor Theodosius gave the order for burning the great library of Alexandria, knowing that the only way to ensure the collapse of the culture and the enslavement of the people was the total obliteration of their history. And so it was done. Tradition holds that the volumes of the Hermetic philosophy which managed to escape the fire were buried in the desert, and their location was known only to a few initiates of the secret societies. Whatever the nature of the being or concept which has become known as Thoth, the races of mankind unequivocally owe to him the very foundations of all scientific and physiological traditions, for his philosophies have had an impact on every high civilization born from Earth. An appropriate introduction to a discussion of the various axioms which constitute the present Hermetic philosophy is an examination of the legend, myth of the vision which bequeath to Thoth the mysteries of the universe and creation. The divine Poimander of Hermes Trismegistus is one of the earliest of the Hermetic writings, though it is not in its original form, having been restructured during the first centuries of the Christian period and incorrectly translated several times, since the work still contains several of the original concepts of the Hermetic doctrine. The Divine Poimander consists of 17 fragmentary writings which were collected and put forth as one work. The second book of the Poimander is known as the Poimandres, the Vision, and is the most famous of all Hermetic fragments because of its ability to endure virtually unchanged through the ages. And now, Poimandres, the Vision. Hermes, in search for divine truth, found himself seeking solitude in a rocky, desolate place. He came to a place of rest and gave himself over to meditation. Following the secret instructions of the temple, he gradually freed his higher consciousness from the bondage of his bodily senses and thus released his divine nature, revealed to him the mysteries of the transcendental spheres. As the process of unfoldment began to climax, Hermes beheld a figure which seemed awe-inspiring and beyond approach. It was the great dragon, with wings stretching across the sky and light streaming in all directions from its body. The great dragon called Hermes by name and asked him why he thus meditated upon the world mystery. Immensely humbled by this spectacle, Hermes prostrated himself before the dragon, beseeching it to reveal its identity. The great creature answered that it was Poimandres, the mind of the universe, the creative intelligence, and the absolute emperor of all things. Hermes then besought Poimandres to disclose unto him the nature of the universe. The great dragon nodded its magnificent head, and its form immediately changed. Where the dragon had stood was now a glorious and pulsating radiance. Then Hermes heard the voice of Poimandres, but his form was not revealed. I, thy God, am the light, and the mind which were before substance was divided from spirit and darkness from light. And the word which appeared as a pillar of flame out of the darkness is the Son of God, born of the mystery of the mind. The name of that word is reason. Reason is the offspring of thought, and reason shall divide the light from the darkness and establish truth in the midst of the waters. Understand, O Hermes, and meditate deeply upon the mystery. So it is that divine light that dwells in the midst of mortal darkness, and ignorance cannot divide them. The union of the world and the mind produces a mystery which is called life. Learn deeply of the mind and its mystery, for therein lies the secret of immortality. The dragon again revealed its form to Hermes, and for a long time the two looked steadfastly one upon the other, eye to eye, so that Hermes trembled before the gaze of Poimandres. At the word of the dragon the heavens opened, and the innumerable light powers were revealed. Hermes beheld the spirits of the stars, the celestials controlling the universe. Hermes realized that the sight which he beheld was revealed to him only because Poimandres had spoken a word. The word was reason. And by the reason of the word invisible things were made manifest. The darkness below, receiving the hammer of the word, was fashioned into an orderly universe. The elements separated into strata, and each brought forth living creatures. The supreme being, the mind, manifested male and female, and they brought forth the word. And the word, suspended between light and darkness, was delivered of another mind, called the workman, the master builder, or the maker of things. In this manner it was accomplished, O Hermes. The word, moving like a breath through space, called forth the fire by the frictions of its motion. Therefore the fire is called the son of striving. The son of striving thus formed the seven governors, the spirits of the planets, whose orbit bounded the world, and the seven governors controlled the world by the mysterious power called destiny. Then the downward turned and unreasoning elements brought forth creatures without reason. Substance could not bestow reason, for reason had ascended out of it. The air produced flying things, and the waters things that swam. The earth conceived strange, four-footed and creeping beasts, dragons, composite demons, and grotesque monsters. Then the Father, the Supreme Mind, being light and life, fashioned a glorious universal man in its own image, not an earthly man, but a heavenly man, dwelling in the light of God. The Supreme Mind loved the man, and it had fashioned and delivered to him the control of the creations. Man too willed to make things, and his Father gave permission. The seven governors, planets, of whose powers he partook, rejoiced, and each gave the man a share of its own nature. The man longed to pierce the circumference of the circles and understand the mysteries of him who sat upon the eternal fire. Having already all power, he stooped down and peeped through the seven harmonies, and breaking through the strength of the circles, made himself manifest to nature, stretched out below. The man, looking into the depths, smiled, for he beheld a shadow upon the earth, and a likeness mirrored in the waters, which shadow and likeness were a reflection of himself. The man fell in love with his own shadow, and desired to descend into it. Concedent with the desire, the divine or intelligent aspect of man united itself with the unreasoning image or shape. Nature, beholding the descent, wrapped herself about the man whom she loved, and the two were mingled. For this reason man is a composite. Within him is the sky man, immortal and beautiful. Without is nature, mortal and destructible. Thus suffering is a result of the immortal man's falling in love with his shadow and giving up reality to dwell in the darkness of illusion. For being immortal, man has the power of the seven governors, also the life, the light, and the word. But being mortal, he is controlled by the rings of the governors, fate or destiny. Of the mortal man, it should be said he is hermaphrodite, or male and female, and eternally watchful. He neither slumbers nor sleeps, and is governed by a father, also both male and female, and ever watchful. Such is a mystery kept hidden to this day, for nature, being mingled in marriage with the sky man, brought forth a wonder most wonderful, 7 men, all bisexual, male and female, and upright of stature, each one exemplifying the natures of the 7 governors. These, O Hermes, are the 7 races, species, and wills. After this manner were the 7 men generated. Earth was the female element, and water the male element. And from the fire and the ether they received their spirits. And nature produced bodies after the species and shapes of men. They reproduce themselves out of themselves, for each was male and female. But at the end of the period, the knot of destiny was untied by the will of God, and the bound of all things was loosened. Then all living creatures, including man, which had been hermaphroditical, were separated, the males being set apart by themselves, and the females likewise according to the dictates of reason. Then God spoke the holy word within the soul of all things, saying, Increase and multiply in multitudes, all of you my creatures and workmanships. Let him that is endowed with mind know himself to be immortal, and that the cause of death is the love of the body. And let him learn all things that are, for he who has recognized himself enters into the state of good. And when God had said this, Providence, with the aid of the 7 governors and harmony, brought the sexes together. He who through the error of attachment loves his body, abides wandering in darkness, sensible and suffering the things of death. But he who realizes that the body is but the tomb of the soul rises to immortality. Then Hermes desired to know why men should be deprived of immortality for the sin of ignorance alone. The great dragon answered, To the ignorant the body is supreme, and they are incapable of realizing the immortality that is within them. Knowing only the body which is subject to death, they believe in death, because they worship the substance which is the cause of reality of death. Hermes bowed his head in thankfulness to the great dragon, who had taught him so much, and begged to hear more concerning the ultimate of the human soul. So Poimandres resumed. At death, the material body of man is returned to the elements from which it came, and the invisible divine man ascends to the source from whence he came, namely the 8 spheres. The senses, feelings, desires, and body passions return to their source, namely the 7 governors, whose natures in the lower man destroy, but in the invisible spiritual man give life. After the lower nature has returned to the brutishness, the higher struggles to regain its spiritual estate. It ascends the 7 rings upon which sit the 7 governors, and returns to each their lower power in this manner. Upon the first ring sits the moon, and to it is returned the ability to increase and diminish. Upon the second ring sits Mercury, and to it are returned machinists, deceit, and craftiness. Upon the third ring sits Venus, and to it are returned the lusts and passions. Upon the fourth ring sits the Sun, and to this Lord are returned ambitions. Upon the fifth ring sits Mars, and to it are returned rashness and profane boldness. Upon the sixth ring sits Jupiter, and to it are returned the sense of accumulation and riches. And upon the seventh ring sits Saturn, at the gate of the chaos, and to it are returned falsehood and evil plotting. Then, being naked of all the accumulations of the 7 rings, the soul comes to the 8th sphere, namely the ring of the fixed stars. Here, freed of all illusion, it dwells in the light, which only pure spirit may understand. The path to immortality is hard, and only a few find it. The rest await the great day when the wheels of the universe shall be stopped, and the mortal sparks shall escape from the sheets of substance. Woe unto those who wait, for they must return again, unconscious and unknowing. Blessed art thou, O Son of Light, to whom all men, I, Poimandres, the light of the world, have revealed myself. I order you to go forth to become as a guide to those who wander in darkness, that they may be saved by my mind. In you establish my mysteries, and they shall not fail from this earth. Hermes heard and replied, The sleep of the body is a sober watchfulness of the mind, and the shutting of my eyes reveals the true light. My silence is filled with budding life and hope, and is full of good, for this is a faithful account of what I received from my true mind, that I, Poimandres, the great dragon, the Lord of the Word, through whom I became inspired with the truth. In reading the Vision of Hermes, or the Vision of Thoth, and back to explanation by Wayne B. Chandler, he writes, The Vision of Hermes is significant in several ways. Theologians will invariably discover that many Hermetic precepts would appear in obviously influence the Christian Bible several centuries later. Orientalists familiar with symbolic iconography of China and India, we'll discover the origin of the dragon in Chinese mythology and culture, not to mention the philosophical profundities inherent in the yogic, Hindu, Jain, and Buddhist traditions in South Asia. The Vision of Hermes, like so many of the Hermetic writings, is an allegorical exposition of great philosophical and mystic truths. The intention here is to unravel, or in the words of the ancients, to lift the veil of Isis to expose a practical and fundamental function of the axioms therein. The great Hermetic principles or laws that have been left to us are 7 in number. 7 is not just an arbitrary figure, but a powerful and extremely significant symbol of divine or universal cohesiveness that permeates the core of our very existence. The following will dramatize this point. There are 7 days in a week and 42 weeks in a year. 5 plus 2 equals 7. The earth was created in 7 days, and on the 7th day God rested. Psychologists state that the age 7 is the age of reason. Twice at 14 is puberty. Thrice at 21 is maturation. There are 7 cardinal colors in the solar spectrum: violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, from which all other colors are derived. There are 7 key notes in the musical scale. There are 7 continents, as there are 7 seas, as well as 7 planets, called the 7 governors by the ancients, also referred to as the 7 angels in Revelations in the Christian Bible. There are 7 holes which lead into the human body: ear, nose, nostrils, mouth, anus, vaginal or penile orifices. The human brain, heart, eye, and ear are each divided into 7 parts. The skin has 7 layers. There are 7 virtues: faith, hope, charity, strength, prudence, temperance, justice, and 7 deadly sins: pride, avarice, luxury, wrath, idleness, gluttony, envy. It is not by chance that so many components of human life are connected to expressions of 7. The ancients held that 7 was the most spiritually inclined of all numbers. Therefore, it is befitting that there are 7 Hermetic axioms. Reading of the Hermetic axioms of Thoth, Hermes. The principle of mentalism. The all is mind. The universe is mental. 2. The principle of correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. 3. The principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. 4. The principle of polarity. Everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature but different in degree. Extremes meet, all truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. 5. The principle of gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. 6. The principle of rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swings manifest in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. And 7. The principle of cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. And reading of Wayne B. Chandler in Egypt, Child of Africa. This is my favorite creation story. One of my favorite readings of mythology. It's just so beautiful. And you can see where either it inspired various aspects of Christianity with the word, or possibly were the beginnings of Christianity, of something that was lost long ago. We don't know. But it's just marvelous. And I would recommend to everybody to look without the religion that was taught to you, but to look deeper into it. And some of these writings in ancient Egypt that are out there are just beautiful, bar none. I love the Bible. I think the Quran's a great book. Several other Eastern writings, but some of the ancient Egyptian mythologies and principles are just absolutely astonishing like this. But I will leave a link to where you can download this, and like, subscribe, and I'll have some more readings for you very soon. Thank you.